Hello everyone. Today we shall start our discussion on a highly influential English romantic poet, Percy Bysshe Shelley. Shelley belonged to the younger generation of the romantic poets, and he was a revolutionary. He was a poet of protest among the romantics, and he strongly wanted to change the society. He believed that society could change through the conscious effort of the individual. He was a poet of passion and dreams. He was infectious. He was a powerful poet. And today we will learn more about him. Here is a brief biographical sketch of Shelley. Shelley was born on 4th of August in 1792 at Field Place in Sussex. He was the eldest son of Timothy and Elizabeth Shelley. His father, Sir Timothy, was a parliamentarian. Shelley had a difficult relationship with his father. He belonged to the aristocratic family, and he was to inherit not only his grandfather's considerable estate but also a seat in parliament. In 1804, he went to Eton Public School, and as a boy, he was uncommon. He was violent in his likes and dislikes, and he hated the sight of tyranny. He visited graveyards and studied alchemy. In 1810, he went to Oxford, and there his revolutionary spirit grew, and he bitterly opposed the existing state of society. He did not spend long at Oxford University. He was expelled from the university for writing a pamphlet titled The Necessity of Atheism, and this was circulated with his friend Thomas Hogg. In 1811, he eloped to Scotland with Harriet Westbrook and married her. His marriage with Harriet was a failure, and in 1816, he married Mary Godwin, daughter of William Godwin, with whom he was very much inspired. He was friends with George Gordon, Lord Byron, and Leigh Hunt. The last 4 years of his life, that is from 1818 to 1822, he spent in Italy, and this was the most prolific period of his career. Many important works were written and published during this period. In 1822, Shelley was drowned in a storm in Italy. So he had a very small life of about 30 years. Shelley's contribution to English literature is immense. He wrote a considerable amount of poetry in his short life. Some of the notable works of the poet are listed here. Queen Mab is the first poetical work of Shelley, published in 1813. It is written in blank verse. It exposes the institutions of social evils like monarchy, commerce, and religion, and it describes a visionary future in which humanity is liberated from all such vices. The poem is coarse in expression, but it hints at the great future of the poet. Alastair, or the Spirit of Solitude, is considered to be the first mature poem of Shelley, and it is a poem about the broodings of a poet's heart in solitude. It was written at a time when Shelley was inclined to brood over the thoughts and emotions of his own soul. It depicts the tragedy of a young idealist who seeks his ideal of beauty in real life. His Beauty was written in 1816 when Shelley, with his wife Mary Shelley, had visited their friend and fellow writer Lord Byron. It reveals Shelley's spiritual connection to beauty through nature. The poem reads like a prayer to the spirit of beauty, whom Shelley calls upon as deity. Ozymandias, published in 1818 in the Examiner, was written with a friend of Shelley, and the poem it describes the ruins of an ancient king's statue in a foreign desert. The poem is a sonnet, but it breaks away from the typical sonnet tradition both in its form and rhyme scheme, and this reveals Shelley's interest in challenging conventions, both political and poetic. The Revolt of Islam, a very well known poem of Shelley, was published in 1818, and originally the poem was published under the title Lone and Cynthia. The work is a symbolic parable of liberation and revolutionary idealism following the disillusionment of the French Revolution. The poem contains the rigorous thinking of the poet on the subject of revolution, and this poem it is considered to be a transition between the earlier works of Shelley and his great poems to follow. Julian and Medulla, published in 1818, is inspired by the conversations Shelley had with Byron in Venice. Here, Julian represents Shelley and Medulla Byron. The poem it is written in heroic couplet, and it discusses the problem of free will, progress, and religious beliefs. This is the poem which influenced Browning's dramatic monologues. Prometheus Unbound, the four-act lyrical drama, is Shelley's masterpiece, and it presents Shelley's philosophy of life. It expresses his thirst for freedom, and it retells the Greek myth and play, and it is the most ambitious poem of Shelley, which celebrates love as the force that should rule the human and natural world. The Cenci is a verse tragedy written in five acts, and it is modeled after Shakespearean tragedy. It is noted for its powerful characters, evocative language, and moral ambiguities. It is based on on an incident in Renaissance Rome. Shelley is the greatest lyrical poet, and he possesses the lyrical gift. His poems reveal intense lyricism. His lyrical poetry is the greatest contribution of the Romantic period to English literature. Two of his odes, Ode to the West Wind and To a Skylark, are the most outstanding lyrics, and they exhibit Shelley's genius as a lyric poet. They are the treasures in English literature, and Shelley has rightly been called the perfect singing bird. Adonai, a pastoral elegy published in 1821. Shelley wrote this poem to commemorate the death of his friend and fellow poet John Keats, who died at the age of 26. The poem is written in 55 Spenserian stanzas, and it is ranked with Milton's Lycidas for its purity and classical form. The poet here mourns the death of Adonai, but ends by placing him among the immortals. Here are a few lines from the poem where Shelley declares that, quote, "We decay like corpses in a channel. The creative spirit of Adonai, like a star, beckons from the abode where the eternal are." Unquote. Shelley also attempted works of prose, and A Defense of Poetry is his greatest well-known work of prose. Shelley wrote this essay in defense of poetry and as a reaction to an essay by his friend Thomas Peacock, who criticized the modern poetry. Shelley here states that poetry's main is to reveal the exquisiteness of the world, and Shelley presents the poet as a person who has a considerate mystical gratitude to nature. The poet, according to Shelley, has the authority to interpret the indefinite and hidden, and with the virtue of his individuality and heavenly supremacy, he enjoys. So here Shelley insists that the creation of poetry is not a mere craft that anyone can produce poetry or anyone can do it. Rather, the poet is a creative, inspiring dreamer who accumulates all his imagination and qualities as a means of creating art and enlightening the world of the unknown. So, Shelley was appreciated both for his poems as well as the prose works.